Hello and welcome to Watch Our Crappens, a podcast about all that crap on Bravo that we just love to talk about. I'm Ben Mandelker, and joining me, as usual, today, Mr. Ronnie Karam. Hi, Ronnie. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi. Are you ready for the conclusion of the Summer House reunion? I thought it was going to be a three-parter for sure, so I was surprised.
I did too.
It was over.
I felt like I won something at the end, and it's not that I want Summer House to be over. I love Summer House, but, it's just, I was taking notes on it, and it just felt like, oh my God, school's out. So it's like they tell you school's out a week early, It was very exciting.
I guess we should have known since the first episode was supersized. A lot of times if the first episode is supersized, it usually means, I think, that's only going to be a two-parter. But for some reason, I didn't allow myself the dream of it being only a two-parter. And so when it was, I was like, wow. Although I will say that I felt like Kyle got off super easy on this.
He sure did. They just took another chance to all shit on Lindsay, which I get it. Lindsay's crazy. Did. I get it. I'm not saying she's not, but really, you guys are just going to all let all the guys get away with everything except for Lindsay and just jump on. Everything is Lindsay's fault. Every single thing that's ever happened is fucking Lindsay's fault.
I thought it was wild, and, I mean, how many times do I have to repeat myself? Not to you, but to the cosmos, which is that what Lindsay said, Cocaine Carl, was horrific. And when Sierra says later on that that's a relationship ending thing to say, I completely agree. But that being said, Carl does not get off scot-free. They really even Andy, they were all coming for Lindsay in a way where I was like, no, there were two people at fault here. Okay, we saw what Lindsay. Where she was really at fault. But Carl was very much at fault for so much of what happened. And Lindsay was fully justified in being totally exasperated with this guy. And for them to be like, oh, what's wrong with that? Carl's always falling on a sword. He's always falling on a sword. Is he?
He is not. No, he's not. He's so manipulative. And I love that she can call it out. But they've got her to the point now where they just are openly laughing at her, especially the girls. I will say, especially Paige and Sierra sitting over there openly pointing and laughing. You know what, Paige? You're constantly fucking telling Craig that his ideas are stupid, first of all. Why does Paige get off? She's never told Craig his ideas are stupid. We love it when Paige does it. We think it's hilarious when Paige does it. But Lindsay doesn't have that charm. And so Paige then, when it's not her turn to openly humiliate her boyfriend, it's hilarious that someone would even think that that's okay. And, she's such an asshole. She really is such an asshole half the time. And I've really liked her most of this season, but she really opens that asshole flower when she comes to the reunions. I don't like it. And then Sierra there is a whole victim this whole time. She's so crying and she's so hurt by this guy. And then she's openly mocking somebody else. And while I'm at it, just get ready to hate my ass anyway, everybody out there, because I know I'm going to take a lot of shit for this. Lindsay wasn't saying Cocaine Carl like it was hilarious. Here comes Cocaine Carl. Does that make it right for her to bring it up on camera? No, absolutely not. But when we get to the part where Carl's like, oh yeah, bringing stuff up like that after someone's worked so hard, that could jeopardize their sobriety. No, you are in charge of your own sobriety. And I can't believe I'm even hearing talk like that from a sober person. Being sober is so hard. You're not allowed to let other people affect your sobriety like that and other people's words affect it. And I'm sorry I'm already on a soapbox, but this whole thing about turning your addiction into suddenly nobody else gets to say anything ever or have any, it's a point now where I'm going crazy. We don't get to do that as addicts. We just don't get to do it. And I don't know when the rules changed, but sorry. And yes, Lindsay was still wrong for saying Cocaine Carl. But they're just taking it and they're making it like, you said Cocaine Carl. No, she said you reminded me you were treating me like you were raging at me like you used to when you were on cocaine. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cocaine Ronnie has spoken.
Pretty much. That's how I feel right now. I don't even know why I'm not angry right now, but I'll calm it down for the rest of the recap. But, just a general thing. I don't understand how this all turned around into
I think you were
shitting on one person.
I think that one thing that you said, which we have, by the way, said several times over the season, is that, I think that Lindsay's allowed to have some PTSD from from when Carl was not sober. I think that's totally allowed. And that I agree. It's cutting for her to say it. I don't think she should have said that. I think it was really mean of her to say it.
I agree.
But I also think I can also imagine a world where she has been brought to that place, and I just think it's not as cut and dry as it appears on TV. And I think
it was, yeah, I agree with you. And
I think it's actually a pretty nuanced situation. And I think that it seems to be that everyone was taking a very one-dimensional view of it.
Yes, very well said. And I just want to reiterate what she did was gross, and especially harping on it and keeping going and going that night, how she did. And then the next morning, not cool. It was not a good look. I do not approve of that. What I'm saying right now is that this whole thing of the whole cast acting like she was bullying Carl, like walking around calling him Cocaine Carl everywhere, making it like this big cartoon character. Here comes Cocaine Carl. That's not what happened. She was saying are you using because you are being so mean to me, and the last time you were this mean to me was when you were using, which, is different. So it's still not great, but it's just the way that they're twisting everything to use it as a weapon. These people who are involved aren't even involved in it, and I just think it's gross. It's unfair. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the reasons why Andy seemed to be particularly harsh to Lindsay is because I think what comes out over the hour is that he was pretty pissed off by the narrative that she spun, which is that Carl called up the producers and the producers came and did Carl's bidding. And Andy really hates that. He hates when production is made to look like a puppet of the stars. And we saw he went out of his way to reiterate, no, production makes its own choices and will follow its own story, And I think he was really pissed at Lindsay for spinning a narrative. I think that was my takeaway from it.
I got that too. He was clearly pissed, but at the same time, he was so full of shit because Carl said that he called the producers. So the only thing that was in question was, did Carl call the producers to break up with Lindsay? No. Carl is saying that he called the producers just to see what would happen and to have a conversation, which is bullshit because they had already finished filming. So anyone with a brain, and sorry if you don't disagree with me, I'm not calling you stupid. I'm just saying you're brainless. That was not a good way to phrase it. But
anyone who's a good, decent person.
In my opinion, any decent person would see that that's what he's doing. The cameras go down, you call them to come film you. You have a scene with your friend, should I break up with her? Should I not break up with her? And then the big thing to end the season is you not breaking up with her, saying, oh, you know what we should do? Work it out. You've already said that a million times. You were calling to have a definitive conversation. Give me a fucking break, you wuss. And the fact that he still can't even admit to anything and makes it I never even broke up with her. Lindsay's spinning this narrative that I broke up with her and I never even broke up with her. You are such an absolute wuss. And then crawling all over the place oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, everybody. It's my fault too. I mean, I know it's my fault too. Right, everybody, right? And acting like an abused victim, basically, to make her look like he's so terrified. So everybody's poor Carl. Carl, this isn't all your fault, Carl. Why are you falling on the sword? I mean, the whole thing was just such bullshit. And to have the whole cast jumping on Carl's side when Carl's a fucking liar and Carl treats people like shit. The fact that every single person did it was just gross. Boo.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the fine details. We got nothing else to say except that you can watch us on Crappens on Demand and you can see my sweater, which for some reason is radioactive white today. Do you see this right now? Do you see my sweater?
I like it.
I'm wearing. I've stuck my head through a giant marshmallow at this.
You
point.
look like one of Carl's teeth, actually.
I do. There's actually stripes. The stripes are off camera, so they break up the whiteness. But yeah, I'm dressed up like Carl's tooth. I'm in the series finale of Family Ties when what isn't Michael J. Fox appears to Meredith Baxter Birney as a giant tooth. It's I'm all grown up, Mom. Remember? Is that just me?
I don't.
Okay. Or imagine if that just never happened. I just carried that memory for some reason.
It's a disturbing thing. So I feel like I would have remembered it. He dressed like a giant tooth.
Well, because she was at some sort of recital. I think it was the kid, the little kid that comes later in the series, and he's at school and he's dressed like a little tooth. It's the baby tooth has fallen out of the mouth, and then Meredith Baxter Birney then sees a vision of Alex P. Keaton as a big tooth. It's I'm all grown up.
Wow.
Did this happen? Because I can also imagine Carl doing that. Hey, I'm big tooth. I'm all grown up now.
I'm all grown up now, Bob.
I love how this episode has begun with 8 minutes of you furious and me being guys, remember that episode of Family Ties?
Well, good. I think the audience needed it. I don't know why I came in that angry. I'm actually.
I know why, because I vented to you about something I was annoyed about beforehand, and so I probably revved you up, and you're like, ah!
I don't know. I think I just watched Summer House, and then I was like, oh, I'm not mad, and then I came back here, and I was like, suddenly furious. But there you go. So for the 20 people still listening after all of that, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah. So we are actually at a completely different aspect of Summer House. We are still with Paige telling off West because West is a piece of shit now and no one likes him anymore. So this is when she's saying, we don't live our real lives because there's a camera. We live our real lives because we just dress really well. And so then Sierra
cameras live for me. I don't live for cameras. So.
And cameras run from Danielle. Let's be honest.
Listen, no one is as broken as a camera is that's focused on Danielle.
Do you know the camera industry almost actually closed when Danielle came into the picture? Pun intended.
So Andy's like, well, Paige, you said that you would literally kill West if he hurt Sierra. What do you think about that? And she's like, well, not literally, because jail scares me. Jail is terrifying. Have you seen what they feed you in jail? Have you seen what people in jail wear? It's never.
Literally like a big brick building full of Lindsays. It's horrifying.
No one is allowed to like or subscribe in jail. So I will never be going to jail.
She goes, yeah, so not literally, Andy, you idiot. Why would I literally kill him? But she's my friend, and when she's done with you, I don't know you, Wes. And so then Andy, Wes is like, hey, Wes, what is your biggest regret? Was it screwing the pooch with a potential supermodel? He's like, well, Sierra, Sierra might regret our however month journey, but I don't. Okay, well, do you regret this crazy cream suit you're wearing that doesn't fit? Because we have a lot of regrets about that.
Do you regret dressing like a dinner theater version of Guys and Dolls if it took place in a insane asylum and everything was cream colored? West, just continuing with this stream of pure charisma, is like, my feelings were genuine. Hold on, let me pout. Pouty face. But I just expressed myself too late. And then it was too late to figure stuff out. But obviously it's painful for you, but it's painful for me. But I know it's my fault. But what are you even saying, dude? You don't make any sense. I love hearing that. But my feelings were genuine. I just expressed myself too late. What does that mean? Your feelings were genuine, but you expressed them too late. That you broke up with her too late? That you should have broken up with her earlier? Or that you realized how you felt for her too late? Are you insinuating that you still have some kind of feeling there? What is he even saying?
Sir, you're a journalist. You know how to use your words, okay? You literally, these are simple things, and you work for something called Complex, so you can handle it. So Andy's like...
He's a sports journalist, though. I mean, no offense, but isn't that a lot different? I just feel like I've seen a lot of sports journalism, and to a lay person, this is what it sounds like. LeBron! It's LeBron! That's all I hear.
Sports journalism is actually the most hilarious version of journalism because they are so ridiculous. For all the stuff men are not supposed to show emotions, Jesse Solomon, you have never seen more emotional men than in sports journalism. Okay, first of all, every documentary they show is to make men cry. It's and then as he was doing the slam dunk, he thought about his grandmother who died 40 years ago. And then it's always that. And every article is an outraged guy being and the fact that they got rid of Jeff Van Gundy. And you're okay, just relax, sir. And then they make fun of us. They make fun of these shows, these shows where women just get into arguments. I'm have you seen your writing, sir? Have you seen it? I'm telling you, the articles, the way they're written are so huffy. There's always something and it was looking like it was going to be a great season until it wasn't. And it's everything is like that. Everything is and they thought they were making a great idea, trading, Patrick Mahomes to Kansas City. Well, look how that turned out. I was how is this good writing? You're sassing off to someone in the front office someplace.
Well, then I have to say, then I need more of that in West, because this, whatever he's doing here, is just he's speaking in ellipses. It's just like I don't I thought ... Like, bro, could you show up to fucking work, right? So Andy's like, Sierra, do you have a response? And she goes, it's fine. And he goes, doesn't seem fine. Everybody, Sierra's crying again. Anyone else think it's fine? Anyone? I just want to point out, this is one of the greatest love stories ever told. We got 5 minutes of ellipses and then a great response from Sierra. It's fine. All right, anybody going to write that down? Jane Campion, do you want to take that one on?
I just have like images of like naked Harvey Keitel. How do you say his name?
Keitel.
I'm like, Keitel. Imagine if Harvey Keitel joins the cast of Summer House. That'd be so awkward.
This is still a fuck boy. Like, no matter who you get, they're just a fuck boy. You know, it's like Harvey Keitel's like, well, I'm famous now, so I can commit,
All right, guys. For this weekend's party, the theme is a poker table in the middle of the backyard, and we're all smoking at it. Oh, okay. Thanks, Harvey. So this is the reunion where no one wants to cry. It's hilarious. Jesse doesn't want to cry. Sierra doesn't want to cry. Everything is like, I told myself I wouldn't cry. So Kyle's like, well, I still ship them if they want to get back together. Know what I'm saying? And Andy's like, okay, well, would you give him another shot, Sierra? And she goes, I mean, it would have to be like a world of change. And I just don't know if people can change. So.
And then Jesse laughs and he's like, so you're telling me there's a chance then? Yeah, and this is where you completely fucking lost me. You're still saying that there's a chance? Are you fucking crazy? What have I just been doing all week? I've been making little dolls to stick pins of with stupid teenager hair that I've been calling West and throwing against the wall. I threw one in the dryer, okay? And now you're telling me, oh, well, he'd have to change a lot. No, the answer is no, okay? Date someone outside of a fucking TV show. Please, do yourself a favor. I really like Sierra, and I don't like this self-torture. When are you going to learn? You went from Luke, you went to Austin, you went to West. They're not here, Sierra. Meet someone in the fucking doctor's lounge, okay? I get it.
Ronnie, you got it totally mistaken. She meant like you have to change out of that suit. That's all.
I don't know if people can change their hair so many times and for it to still be this terrible. So no, Andy, I will
change the middle part.
That's what I need to hear, bro. But like after all this, you're still going to give him a chance just because you're both on TV. I can't, Sierra. I can't. And I'm rooting for you, Sierra. But please don't do me wrong like this.
Well, then she does the whole, I can't sit here and say, I don't like him. And he's like, oh, so you do have feelings for him. She goes, yeah, I mean, of course. So then she starts crying. He's like, Wes, what do you think about that? He goes, I mean, same, but like, I didn't expect to hear that. All right, West has passed out on the sofa.
Oh my God, please just do me a favor and don't write your own vows. You know what I mean? Like, we've been through enough. This reunion was really rough. Wow. So Kyle, so now they're on break milling about or whatever. And then Sierra tells Jesse, she's like, guess I could apologize to tell you, should apologize to you for telling you to shut up, but whatever. And he goes, yeah, I try to defend my friend, but I'm just trying to defend my friend, but your feelings are valid. And I'm real sad that you're sad, okay? Your feelings are valid, Toots, okay? Jesse just knowing all the right things to say. Love your feelings. So valid, which is why I just totally stood up for the douchebag who fucked you over 5 minutes ago. Okay.
Paige is like, Wes was like about to cry. I think he was like looking at Danielle and just started to sob. I mean, I think it happens to so many of us. That's why you can't look at her directly in the face.
Well, I feel bad for that. And she goes, for saying exactly what happened, you do not feel bad for that. You do not. He's just scared about the public not liking him. He doesn't give a shit about you. Do you understand that, Sierra? Get your head back in the game. Sierra! Slap, slap. Sierra, focus.
Shake, slap.
Paige directing the scene. She's like, you will not go back to him. Which, thankfully, Paige is there to be like, hell no. But Sierra just goes, whatever. Like, whatever, Mom. I'm going to date whoever I want to. Sierra, I swear to God, I'm getting so upset about this show right now, okay? I just spent all week having a fucking parade for Sierra about this douchebag, and now you're just going to go back and do the same thing. How could you do this to me?
First rule of Bravo, don't have high hopes. So Jesse, the camera guy's like, all right, here we go, Andy. And of course, Jesse's like, here we go, Andy. Really,
yeah, please don't,
I
Jesse.
just can't co-sign Jesse's crooning.
I can't either. Please be quiet. The only reason people aren't asking you to be quiet is because you're somewhat hot.
Exactly. No, I think he's like not somewhat hot. I think he's like full on 100% hot. And that's why he's
summer house hot.
I think he's like, if you saw him in a party, you'd be like, oh my God.
He's hot. Yeah, he's hot.
He's hot. No,
he's hot.
He is hot. He is hot.
I just don't want to give him that much credit because he's singing too much. I think the singing is taking away the hotness, I have to say.
Yeah, I think that maybe it's like when you're there in person and he's so tall that when the notes finally like descend down to your ears, they sound good. But when we hear it directly into the mic, we can hear how they're not like amazing notes. They're decent, but not amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're hot people notes. You know what I mean?
Hot people
I just
notes.
feel like
The notes have tall privilege.
Yeah.
Tall notes.
So Andy's like, we're back. Well, for the past 8 years, we've watched Kyle and Amanda go from a late night booty call fuckboy fuckwit to still a late night booty call fuck all fuckwit, but Amanda's kind of sick of him, but never ever gonna leave him. So let's see how that's going. And it's 8 minutes of, Amanda, why you treat me like that, man? Why you spend time with me, man? And Amanda being like, these two, and then fucking Kyle, they cut out all of Kyle's meanest stuff and make Kyle look like just a fun little wacky sitcom husband. Kyle's a drunk who screams and yells at his wife and calls her a bitch like what, every year, at least once a year on TV, and we're not going to even address that ever.
I literally thought that this was going to be a 3-part reunion and the middle episode was going to be like 45 minutes of the Kyle and Amanda situation because it was so toxic this season. It was so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
He was so condescending
really
to her. And she's no angel either. You know, she really is a nag. I'm sorry. She's a nag, but he like a nag with reason. Like she has earned her nagging.
It's definitely justified whatever nagging happens.
And he's like drunk, you know, like the whole time. And he's like flagrantly not doing the things to make her happy. She says she finally wants to do something for herself, and his male fragility can't deal with it. He has a meltdown. He throws things across the yard. I was like, this is 45 minutes worth. We're going to dive right into it. And the fact that this was actually only just really a segment, and the gist of the segment was like, oh, Amanda was depressed. And that was like, it's almost suggesting like, oh, maybe if she wasn't depressed, this wouldn't have been.
It's all Amanda's fault. It's all the woman's fault.
I didn't like that at all.
Show. Every fucking time, it's all the woman's fault, and it's Amanda doing it too. She's like, but it was me. I was depressed, Andy, and so he had a right to be upset. No, he didn't. He didn't have a right to be treating you like that. Like, I'm sorry, he didn't. It's bullshit, and I'm so sick of it, and I'm so sick of her playing into it. It's gross, and I don't like that nobody's even going to ask. I mean, Kyle and Amanda get to, here's what really pisses me off. Kyle and Amanda sit up here like the prom queen and king. They know better than everybody else about relationships. They're like the veteran relationship. They're going to stay together forever, everybody. So they're like the model couple. They clearly are like, we've had a shit season. People are always telling us to break up. Or people have spent the entire season telling us just to break up and we're miserable human beings. So let's go to this reunion as a united front and we'll just be lovey-dovey and kiss each other after every answer and avoid all the abusive questions if they come. And that's what they do. But then when it comes to Lindsay and Carl, and they're accusing Lindsay of like, oh, well, you're trying to hide stuff from the cameras and you're trying to make everything seem like it's perfect when it was never perfect. What do you think you two are doing? Why did these two get away with doing it, but then they villainize everybody else's relationship?
Well, also think about like
hypocrisy.
How unfair is it that like, you know, Lindsay and Carl in their segment, you know, they're having their back and forth and Kyle keeps chiming in on behalf of Carl really inappropriately and really rudely and going after Lindsay when Lindsay was actually pretty respectful during the Kyle and Amanda segment and could have a million times butt in and been like, well, why did you act like that to her? In fact, no one did. I was shocked at how small, considering how much of a big chunk of the season this was. Like the Kyle and Amanda thing was not nothing. It was not like a little C story. This was like a major storyline. It like almost rivaled Carl and Lindsay for the season, and the fact that it was sort of shoehorned into this tiny little segment in episode 2, I was I felt like it was actually a little bit of a failure on the production's part and how they presented this reunion.
It was a huge failure, and it's a weird way to protect their stars. And I don't know, it just the whole thing rubbed me the wrong way. I found it really gross. So let's go into some of this plasticky bullshit. So Amanda said that you agreed to live in the burbs, Kyle. So that's the question. And so Kyle's like, well, to clarify, it's not that I don't want to live in the burbs. I mean, I grew up in the burbs, all right? And so what I said was when I have kids that are old enough to play in the street, then that's when I'm going to move to the burbs. So, maybe it got misconstrued. Okay, so that's the end of that, huh? So no follow-up questions.
No follow-up question of like, so what's the plan now? Are you gonna you can see that this would make her happy? She said she wants a yard. Would you are you willing to make concessions to make your wife happy? Don't you feel like she's made a lot of concessions for you and you're not doing anything? No, none of those questions whatsoever. We just move right on ahead.
Yeah. So Amanda's like, well, I don't think I've ever heard when they're old enough to play in the street. And then Paige is laughing. She's like, yeah, like when it goes to school, I guess. Not when it's a baby, because that would be bad. Babies playing in the street. I mean, listen, unless they were baby Danielle's. I say, here's your preschool. It's a freeway. Have fun. Have fun playing in that.
Can we put Danielle's dress in the street so I could get run over? It'd actually improve it. So Andy's like, well, Amanda, you've stayed with Kyle through his cheating, his lying, and his mullet. How do you reconcile with that, with the things he said to you about feeling lonely in your marriage and being weary of starting a family? So she's like, well, I love him, unfortunately, so very much. And like, this guy's my best friend. And in his defense, I'm like, why in his defense? He, through the past year, I was on the road to becoming very depressed and I was checked out and I wasn't talking to my friends. I was quite... But why is that in his defense? Isn't that actually to his detriment that, like, considering that you have been in the funk for, like, 2 years, that he was, like, not interested in making any sacrifices that might bring some happiness into your life?
Yeah, isn't it worse that you were depressed and he was walking around the house throwing things wasted and calling you a bitch on national TV? Doesn't that actually make it worse? It doesn't excuse it. She's like, but then being excused and I was depressed. And then Andy's like, but why are you depressed? And she's like, oh, it just runs in my family. Now, look, that is kind of how depression works sometimes. It just comes over you and you can't help it, which is why there's medication and stuff like that. But a lot of time, depression actually is based on actual things that are happening. So I don't like the whole, well, let's see. I'm not doing anything that I like to do. Kyle is shooting down anything that I would want to do, which, by the way, is another thing that they're accusing Lindsay of when Kyle literally is doing it the whole season. I just can't.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And we're just going to ignore it. We're just going to ignore all that so that they can be the perfect little couple. And she can say, well, he's just wacky, but we're in love. He's my best friend. And at the end of the day, it's my fault for being depressed. Women, am I right?
You're so right. They really grilled Lindsay for shooting down Carl's ideas, which, by the way, his ideas are ridiculous.
Stupid.
It's a non-alcoholic cafe. I'm like, it's called a coffee shop.
It's called a fucking coffee shop with a TV, Carl.
You did not reinvent the wheel here. But yeah, you're right. They totally grilled Lindsay for shooting down everything that Carl has suggested. What we literally saw, like when Amanda even like showed a hint of wanting to come up with her own entrepreneurial idea, Kyle literally had a hissy fit, a meltdown. He threw a can across the yard and was only able to apologize for his behavior when like he was essentially iced out.
Yeah. So she's talking about how antidepressants are amazing. And she goes, drugs are great. I mean, medication drugs, am I right? And then Kyle's like, yeah, like, we talked about loneliness and like, we talked about her anxiety. I mean, I know about that stuff, because like when we got married, she went into a funk. Hi, just as someone who's watched your show, before you got married, she was in a funk too.
Yeah.
And during your marriage, she's been in Kyle, it's you. I'm sorry. Someone has to point it out. You're the funky funk.
Yeah, you're a funky DJ. I mean, I think I would probably also be in the funk. So, yeah, basically, like she hit like she had never really gotten out of her post-wedding blues. And then after BravoCon, she hit her ultimate low. Which
It's interesting, isn't it? Because she went from the wedding, because that's a normal thing, right? You get so much attention. You're working on your wedding for so long. You get so much attention. It's all about you for so long. And then that's over. And it's like, well, you just go back to normal life. And there's like a depression that comes after that. And then Bravo comes this whole thing that's also about you. And it's like celebrating you and you're a star and this and that. And then that ends and then you're depressed. Like she's going to constantly need some kind of a tentpole event to make her feel celebrated, because she ain't going to get it from Kyle.
Maybe it's about like 2 high profile events where she has to stand and smile and play nicey nice with Kyle and just appear like we're like the happiest couple in front of the masses. And then maybe it's like the insincerity of that, or maybe the frustration or whatever issues that she has that she feels unresolved. Afterwards, she has to sit with that, and she has to deal with probably what she feels versus how she acted in terms of like having to pretend. And maybe that's tough for her.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. So then Andy's like, well, Sierra, tied from
maybe
Pod,
she's deeply miserable.
What's that?
Maybe she's just deeply miserable.
No, I like that. I was following all that. I hadn't thought of that aspect of it. I like that. So Andy's like, Sierra, Rolling from Polly says, how come you said you don't know who Amanda is outside of Kyle? That wasn't very nice. Okay. And Sierra's like, well, I just wanted her to think about what she wants, not what Kyle wants, because I don't even care about Kyle. And he's like,
and Andy's like, Kyle, why did you react so poorly to that? And he's like, if I could take it back, I would, but because she has so many emotional issues, and then said she's wanted to do something else on top of that. I'm like, I mean, how could you even have an ambition? How could you even decide you want to have a plan to get out of your funk when you're in a funk? Like, that's just like wild to me.
God, this, and he's so disgusting, and nobody calls him out. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't have been mean, but you heard her. She's got emotional issues, and now she wants a job. I mean, come on.
Now she wants to do something for herself. I mean, it's just like a lot.
And I was like, oh, perfectly normal. What a romantic answer, Kyle. And then so Andy's like, well, what do you feel about Kyle saying he wants to be a DJ? And Sierra's like, and now he is a DJ. So it turns out Kyle has become a DJ. He takes classes in Jersey.
Yeah. Every Thursday in Jersey. Which, by the way, Amanda, why don't you use that? Say, we can get a house in Jersey and you'll be close to your DJ lessons. So Andy's
she just needs to say Jersey is the place where middle-aged men become DJs. Oh, boom. You already got him there.
It's the land for your midlife crisis. Okay, you can go there, take your DJ lessons, get an ear pierced, get a Corvette. You'll be great.
Also get drunk with strangers in Jersey. Okay, spinning records. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Why don't you visit Little Big Town, or whatever the name of the Manzo's Bar and Grill was in what's it called, in Hoboken. Which, by the way, that's another thing, Carl. The Manzos, they were those boys, Albie and Christopher, they were at the peak of their popularity, and they were in like a place like this was their domain, and they opened up a full-fledged sports bar right there in Hoboken at the peak of their popularity, and they still couldn't make it work. So why do you think you, sort of in your post-popularity, opening up a not great concept, why do you think that's going to work? It's just not going to work.
And Carl's thing, like, I don't even want to shit on people's dreams.
If the Manzos can't do it, why do you think you could do it? Something I never thought I'd say.
I know. You're putting the Manzos like on a pedestal for somebody else. Like,
if Lauren Manzo couldn't launch Cafes, why did you think that you could launch your non-alc sports bar?
Well, look, here's the thing. Like, I don't want to shit. I mean, it is fun to make fun of Kyle being a DJ, but you go do you, boo. And I don't want to shit on people's dreams. If Carl's dream is to do this, then that's cool. If he's willing to put in the hard work and stuff. The problem is, it's not about shitting on his dreams. It's that he never had one. It's the fact that he's just throwing shit at the wall and then wondering why Lindsay is not super excited about it is the thing. It's not like he's had this idea for a year and he really wanted to do it. She said, have you thought about your career at all? Because you're supposed to be thinking about your career, and you've called this meeting, so what do you want to talk about? And he goes, yeah, I've been thinking about my career. I mean, how about this? Being an actor. No. A sports bar with no alcohol. I don't want to spend all our money on that. How dare you? You've
exactly
my dream. It's not a dream, Carl. It's a stupid random idea you came up with 30 seconds ago.
I totally agree in the sense that, like, I think everyone should follow their dreams or passions. Like if they have an idea that they want to do, like totally do it. But that's different than like forging a career for yourself. Like if you just are like, hey, I want to do this thing, and it's like honestly, it's just not a realistic at this moment, a realistic view for something. I'm gonna walk that back. It's not that's realistic. It's just a known gamble to open up a restaurant anyway, and then to do a sort of a new concept with that sort of restaurant is even more of a gamble. And to those people who take those gambles and it pays off, it's wonderful. But Lindsay in that moment is like, I'm looking for more stability. I'm looking for more career stability because I want to stay home and raise this child that we talked about having, which is something that really gets lost in this reunion. Everyone's like, well, Lindsay, you're also an influencer. But she said she wants to raise this child. And he's aware of that. That's the family dynamic they want to have. And he comes out with a thing that's like a gamble. And it's like, I think that like there's something about Bravo. Maybe this is just a feature of nowadays, the 2024, that a career does not necessarily mean you have to invent something. You don't have to become an entrepreneur. You don't have to create a brand. You don't have to like create a restaurant. You don't have to have a fashion line. You can get a job at a company and work your way up. That's a career too. And it's totally viable. And it's a great way to make a living. And it's like, you don't have to like sit there and think for months on end, like, what's my great idea I'm going to bring to Shark Tank? You don't have to do that. You don't have to be Bethany Frankel. You can just like look on monster.com. Speaking of Bethany.
I was going to say, what is that Bethany's dating site or what?
Look to see if there's any job openings that look interesting to you. Because guess what? You could find something that really lights your fire just at a workplace. Okay?
Yeah, because Amanda is kind of the female Carl in this way, because then Andy's like, well, Carl's doing a DJ, so Amanda, that's cool. So he has a dream. So now what do you want to do outside of Loverboy, Amanda? You've had months to think about this. Go. And she's like, I would love, I don't know, like a brand. Like, I would love to, like, have a brand that's an extension of me, kind of like how Kyle has Loverboy, like that. It's like, well, okay,
It's like, well, the thing is this. I think the unspoken thing is that everyone's thinking, we're on this platform, a national platform, and we want to capitalize off of it. How can we do something that we capitalize off of it and turn it into, like, a multi-million-dollar thing? And everyone feels that pressure to do it. And what I'm just saying is you don't have to do that. You could just get a job. There's like really nothing wrong with getting it. And it's like, I'm not saying go work at Zara, which there's nothing wrong with that. But like, you can just like put your car onto the on-ramp and get onto a career highway there,
Yeah. All right, so now it's just like, where are they now? And Amanda and Kyle just talk about how much they love each other and how perfect they are for each other, and they kiss. And Jesse's like, yeah, can I just say as a newcomer, like, it's crazy to see these two kids. I mean, they are perfect for each other, and like the internet doesn't really get it, but let me just tell you, these two are really, really, I mean, perfect for each other. Okay. Thanks. So then Lindsay looks all mad, by the way. They cut to Lindsay and she's like, okay, so now we get to sit here and watch these two fucking fake it. And let's come back to like dragging me across the coals after this guy just fucking emotionally abused this woman all year. That'll be fun.
So then Andy's like, all right, well, this year, instead of sending it, they were singing it. And so we see yet again another clip of Jesse singing his song. And of course, Jesse is the sort of person who sings along to his own clip package. So he's like there in the little box going, what would Jesse Solomon do? And they're all singing like, what would Jesse Solomon do? And then they don't know any of the other lyrics. It's just
it's just like that happened in the beginning of the reunion where Andy was like, oh, I've been singing what would Jesse Solomon do? And Jesse goes, yeah, that was fun. It was a fun project. Worked with some pretty great people on that one. That was good. Just excited for more projects, Andy. Okay.
He really is acting like he collaborated with Daft Punk or something. So you see it. Andy's like, well, so Method from Counter Spray says, Paige, did you get Jesse to flirt with you because you like attention? And she's like, I like attention, of course, like the good kind, not like Danielle's dress kind. And like, I'm on a stage, okay? But like, I don't think I was like overly flirtatious, but I was like nice and he was funny. And he like called me out 4 times today because like I touched his leg, which is like ridiculous because like, why would I ever touch his leg? And then we see a clip package of her like touching his leg over and over and over again.
Yeah, I've been like, oh, Jesse, you're hilarious. Oh, Jesse. Well, Paige, you said Craig wasn't worried about Jesse after he met him. Oh, that was pretty cool. Am I right? She's like, okay, well, look, I mean, Danielle had a point. I mean, in interviews, I admit it, but I just meant his personality's goofy and like Craig wasn't worried, you know, because I was like, someone touched my leg, Craig, and he's like, oh, okay, Paige, cool. You know, like panda bears aren't real. So,
I mean, why should I really be concerned about, like, why should Craig be concerned about Jesse? He kind of looks like a cartoon cactus. All that's missing is like a little cowboy hat and a bandana. Am I right, everyone? Just look at him. Just look. Visualize it. Look at that face on a cactus. It's there. You're welcome.
So Andy, do you think that Jesse, here's my question. Do you think Jesse and Sierra are going to start a love triangle? West is going to get all jealous now. I think Jesse likes Amanda and Sierra, but I think he's going to date Sierra. What do you think?
Well, I think that Sierra knows that Jesse is a through and through fuckboy. Like that. The thing is Jesse has never even tried to hide it. We've seen it all summer. He's just been a fuckboy with people that aren't on the show, so it's been kind of like not an issue for us. We just see him bringing girls in, and then he's like, oh yeah, I got my Thursday girl, I got my Tuesday girl, and then on Wednesday I go to Starbucks and I flirt with a girl there. And we're like, ah ha 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 ha. But like everyone
yeah, but
sees
what
it.
does Sierra care? She was with Austin. She still liked Austin even after all of that, and she's still probably going to give West another chance. So, and Jesse did do the thing where he's like, "Oh, well, look, I'm admitting I'm a fuckboy, but guess what? If I find the right girl, that's all I'm looking for." You know,
Yeah,
so he did
he's
that.
doing the
He did
golden
add that
ticket
part.
thing. Like, who's going to get the golden ticket?
Exactly.
You know what?
Who's going to be lucky enough to win my affection?
I don't think Sierra's going to go for him because what I do see from Sierra is someone who I do believe is trying to grow. I do think that she is really trying to, with each failure, she's trying to take lessons from that and apply it going forward. So I do think that like everything with West was such a massive improvement with, you know, like with Austin. And I think she's going to take from that and apply it to the next one. So I don't think she's going to go with Jesse. Go with Jesse like she's in the 1950s.
You can go with Jesse. Are you guys going together? Okay. What's next here?
Cancer. Say, so brave of you to share cancer, and to share about it, I mean, we caught you on camera and then we asked you questions about it. Why was it so important? And he's like, oh, well, it's important. He's nice. You know, he says it's good to show that didn't affect me and, you know, move forward, etc. And then Andy was asking about like, you know, like, hey, you have this incredibly scary thing that's happening to you. It's deeply personal to you. Why didn't you share it with everyone in the household?
So
like, I wonder why.
Seriously, it's so gross. Like, what wasn't it on camera? Why were you hiding from the cameras? You were crying. You were almost dead, and you didn't put it on camera. Where the hell do you think you are? Costco sample counter? Come on.
Well, as a man, you don't want to show emotion, but what you want to do is sing emotion. I am really sad this weekend. I'm so sad. I'm sad, Jesse Solomon.
All right. Well, that was a real banger. Okay. Thanks for the counter banger there. So he basically is like, yeah, I thought that men couldn't show emotion. And Amanda goes, Kyle does. He's literally already cried today. And then it's like 5 minutes ago. And Kyle's like, what Sierra just said was so sad. It was so sad.
So Jesse's like, yeah, I was wrong to feel that way, and it was an insecurity of mine, and like the messages from fans were like super rewarding, especially the ones that had nudes. So yeah, I'm like really glad I showed emotion.
And Wes is just looking at him like, God, I love you. I love you so fucking much.
Did we talk about the fact, I don't think we talked about it, that West was so nervous during his segment that he like lifted up his armpit during the break and was like, look at this, and he had giant sweat stains through the blazer. Did you see that?
Mm-mm. Gross.
Ooh, it was intense. It was really intense.
So now let's talk about Lindsay and Carl some more. Okay, so now we get into the cocaine Carl. Dun, dun, dun. So clips of Lindsay wasted saying Carl wasn't sober that night. And then Carl is telling us, I went to the summer thinking we had stuff, but I didn't think people would find out about it because I wanted to protect it. Okay, so Carl's not going to get in trouble for not bringing things on camera now?
So Lindsay's like, well, when I got to the house, I'm like on edge. I didn't know what was going to happen with the girls. And like, it was like, it's going to take us a minute, And she talks about how like coming out of the reunion, all the girls came for her and she was in a fight with Danielle. She just didn't know where she was going to stand. And so she started to drink because she was really anxious. And which, by the way, that's always great to do when you're engaged to someone who's sober. And then they went to the club, and then she wound up in like an Uber or a Lyft with all the guys, and she just was afraid that it was going to be used against her. And so she was sort of like waiting for some sort of like awkwardness or a fight with the girls. And she expressed that to Carl, and she just felt very, very dismissed. And she says that she wants a partner to be like, it's okay, don't worry, the girls will be fine. Instead, he was like, just get over it. It was very dismissive. And then Kyle goes, there was no dismissiveness. It was all in your head. All in your head. What?
He says dismissively.
That literal sentence could not have been more dismissive. No one was being dismissive to you. You were just like a crazy woman coming up with crazy concoctions inside your crazy woman head.
Yeah, it's all in your head, Lindsay. And she's like, you don't get to tell me how I feel. He's like, oh, by the time we got to the club, you had a full-blown fight about something you manifested out of thin air. I mean, what, do you have depression or something? I'm all right, Amanda.
I mean, look, did she work herself into a tizzy over like some massive theoreticals? Yes, she absolutely did. She did make something in her head, but she also has a partner who spent a huge amount of energy all season saying like, I just want softness and tenderness. I just want like someone to be like a cheerleader for me, who like was not doing it for her. Which it could go the other way around, which is that she was like, I'm not gonna be a cheerleader, but then she's also asking for a cheerleader. But the point is this, like, yes, this may have been all in her head, but Carl could have easily been like, hey, don't worry about it, babe. I got you. I got your back.
Well, we've seen Lindsay spin out of control and start screaming at boyfriends a million times for many, many reasons, okay? So especially when she's drinking. Hold on. Pardon me, I've dismissed that sneeze right now. Oh, wow. I didn't mean to dismiss you, but get over it. Get over it, sneeze. But here's what kills me. I don't doubt that Lindsay blew this out of proportion and then it became a huge fight or whatever. I didn't see it. It wasn't on TV. I'm just going to go ahead and give this one to Kyle because I know that Lindsay can act psychotic. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give that to Kyle because I haven't given Kyle many lately. But here's where this whole thing falls apart for me. Kyle acting like somebody else is spinning out of control and being unreasonable when he just got to skip over an entire section of him calling his wife a bitch and throwing shit.
There you go.
Is a little bit hypocritical. And the fact that nobody calls him out, like, oh, really, Kyle? You think it's bad to start yelling at your partner over shit that you're just making up in your head? Really? Roll the clip, Andy.
I kind of wish Gabby were a better reality star because really Lindsay had no one to chime in on her behalf for that. Like, when you have like a bunch of people on your side, the benefit of having a bunch of people on your side is that you have more brains to think about like moments like this. And if it's just you may not have the capacity to think of all these moments. But the truth is this, if you want to talk about something that was concocted inside your brain, it was Kyle melting down the moment Amanda said, I was thinking about like figuring out some stuff for myself. And then he's like, you're going to leave me. You're going to leave me in the dust. It's like, I thought we were in this together. So it really is not fair for him to say that. And the other thing is that like you said, Lindsay, like losing her mind on her boyfriends, over something that she's whipped up in her head is like been something she's been doing since season 1. And it goes back to that same thing we've been saying all year. Carl knew who he was getting engaged to. And now he's suddenly like surprised. It doesn't.
Well, Carl does it too. Carl flips out and he gets that flash of anger in his eyes where his eyes just turn black and glaze over. Like we've seen it happen to Carl a million times. Carl learns. He reads the internet, he reads all the comments, and he tries to come back and change his personality. Not change his personality, but change what he shows of his personality. And it works. Right. I mean, look how many people who are buying Carl's load of shit this season, And we've seen Carl lose his temper all the time. And that's the thing that makes me crazy is there they're a toxic couple. They get together, they fight like crazy, they do it in front of other people, they ruin other people's time all the time. We've seen Carl and Lindsay date before this round when they tried dating the first time and he was a complete jackass to her. We saw that already. And so for everybody to pretend like none of that ever happened and Lindsay is just crazy, when we've seen that side of Carl many, many times, you know, it's just like the editing of history is what's making me nuts. And so Lindsay's like, you know what, Kyle, I was drinking in that moment and I had emotions, and what happens when I drink? And he goes, but there's a history of you drinking and becoming irate. Kyle, are you fucking kidding me? That's your entire fucking plot on this show, is getting fucking hysterical, pissing all over the place, whipping your dick out, and then raging at everybody and raging at your wife and acting like a complete jackass, and then blaming the alcohol and crying the next day to make everybody forgive you. You fucking man-child, you hypocrite.
Yeah, and he says, I'm not privy to all your fights, but I'm telling you that if this is how they all go, I can see why they spiral because of delusion. I'm like, well, first of all, again, let's really not take away from the fact that Lindsay is a disaster, and this has always been her thing, you know? But, like, again, this is Carl who prided himself on navigating Lindsay's abandonment issues really well, he says. But clearly he's not, because she says he was ignoring me the entire time. She's clearly feeling abandoned in this moment. And he's just like, whatever. It's fine. Like you're being crazy right now. They're just a disaster, obviously. So anyway, Lindsay's like, you know what, Kyle? I'm just going to let you speak for me, Kyle. And he goes, well, I've known you for like 10 years. She goes, and I know you, Kyle. She's just getting frustrated because he's just jumping in. He's not letting her talk, which is so obnoxious. Regardless of whose side you're on in this thing, like, let them both just talk and have, like,
it's not his.
their time.
Like, you were right that she didn't jump into his and Amanda's bullshit, but he's there because Carl is too much of a fucking wuss to do anything, and Carl has built it up to where he's such a victim he can't even speak for himself.
Right,
so
that's the other
Kyle
thing.
has to come in and save the poor other man from another horrific woman. At least his woman just admitted everything was her fault because she was depressed. When's Lindsay's moment to admit that everything is her fucking fault? And I can't stress enough how much Sierra and Paige are sitting there snickering at everything. Every
really
time Kyle tells off Lindsay, they snicker and they laugh at each other and point at Lindsay. I mean, you guys are really fucking assholes. You guys are fucking assholes. You're like children. And this is why people go on the internet and call you mean girls, because you act like this sometimes. You know, you get like this. It's gross to watch it.
I'm an unabashed Paige fan. I even really like Kyle. We come down on Kyle so hard, but I actually really, really enjoy Kyle. But I think that Paige, in this moment, the way that she's like just laughing or whatever, I just think that she is being actually pretty obnoxious. And I didn't like that at all. Yeah. So then Andy's like, Carl, how did you feel about Lindsay? Crazy cuckoo Lindsay calling you Cocaine Carl. Did you know about it before it aired? He's like, oh. Well, I did not know that she called me Cocaine Carl until it aired, and I know something was said, and I didn't know it was being said, but, like, what I struggle with is that, like, saying like that, that's, like that was a big problem for me. Like, you've been so supportive of my journey. Like, you hugged me so tight, so hard. Harder.
Please, Tyler. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't hard enough for tight enough. You try harder.
How could you, like, hug someone so tight and then accuse me of being on a substance other than, like, addicted to hugs? Like, that I'm in recovery from. Like, that almost killed me. And I hope that you know that you accusing me of being on a substance can cause a relapse. And I've never been called Cocaine Carl my entire life.
Now, look, this is a moment where I do think Carl gets to have a monologue where he gets to go off about what an asshole she was, because she was an asshole. And this one, really, there's really no excuse. I will just say, again, reiterate from the beginning, you are not allowed to blame a relapse on anybody else. That is all you. And if you are out there and you are thinking like this, stop it. Your sobriety is your fucking responsibility. Man up and deal with it. And if you fail and you mess up, guess what? We all do. We all mess up, and it's okay. You're not a bad person.
I have a question.
You're not a bad person for being an addict, and you're not a bad person for relapsing, and you're not a bad person. None of this makes you bad. Drugs and alcohol are addictive. It's them. They're bad. But don't blame other people for you relapsing. Take responsibility for your own life.
I have a question for you, Ronnie, and this is actually not like me challenging you, but I can imagine someone might ask this. How do you reconcile saying, well, external factors can cause a depression in the case of Amanda, with also then saying, well, you're in charge of your own sobriety, like external factors like that shouldn't matter. It's on you.
What do you mean, how to rectify it?
How do you reconcile? Because in one
you can be depressed. I mean, something can cause you massive depression, but it doesn't give you. A lot of times, what an addict will do is we will find a reason to use. So if you're depressed, for example, like I have a big problem with food, and I also have a problem with depression. So for a long time, I would get really depressed and binge out like crazy for days and days. I would just hide in my house and binge like crazy. I know this is TMI, but just so you know where I'm coming from.
Sharing safe space.
And when you get I kind of realized through through therapy and talking to people about it, sometimes the depression, I wasn't even really depressed. Like if I started talking through why I was depressed or what was going on or what was happening, it wasn't really that I was depressed. It's that I wanted to stay home and binge on food because I'm severely addicted to food. I'm a binge eater. And so it's almost like I'm finding an excuse. So if something would happen that was even minor, I would kind of blow it up into this huge thing. So I would have this reason to go back to my addiction. You know what I mean? And I'm not projecting that onto this situation. I'm not saying like my issues are these. I'm saying that's a very typical thing in addiction to kind of do and to fall into that thing. And so when you're in a fight with somebody or you break up with somebody or something very dramatic happens, it's very natural to say, well, I relapsed, but I relapsed because X happened, right? And in recovery, you have to learn you can't blame, because ultimately you're the one who used the substance, or you're the one who binged, or you're the one who went on the bender. And you cannot ever fix yourself if you don't take the power of saying, I'm the one who's hurting myself. And so I'm the one who can fix myself and stop hurting myself. Does that make sense? You have to take responsibility for hurting yourself, forgive yourself, and then take the responsibility for fixing yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, because I just felt like I think it's important to understand how those two different scenarios can coexist. So thank you for that.
You're right. You can be depressed, but it's how you deal with it. Are you going to be depressed and then go shoot up heroin or binge or get wasted? Or are you going to be depressed and go for a run or, find other positive ways? It's a bitch. Addiction's a bitch. And I think that we simplify it so much on these shows that it's like everybody's using substances on these shows, especially Summer House and Vanderpump Rules and stuff like that. And we get to the point where we glorify it and we think it's hilarious. And, oh my God, these people are so wasted in this scene. But then when somebody has a problem, we're like, oh my God, we will never talk about it again. We will never talk. They're working through it. So we cannot talk about addiction anymore. We cannot talk about the good and the bad about it. It's like either we ignore it and we glorify it and think it's hilarious, or we're like, uh-oh, that person has a problem. Never speak about it. And how do you get anywhere if you're like that,
Yeah. Well, anyway, Lindsay says, she says, like, first of all, I will say it was completely wrong of me to question your sobriety after how hard you worked. So I'm sorry that I mentioned it to begin with, but I don't think it was wrong to question your behavior when it was a little aggressive and dismissive. So then Kyle's like, but that's the problem. It wasn't. We all witnessed it. And she's like, am I allowed to speak? He's like, no, there was no, end descends with I'm sorry. End it with I'm sorry. Which I'm like, I feel like when Lindsay was saying that, like, here is like a moment where she like gets, I can't stand this. I can't stand when there's a moment where you can start to see what could be the beginning of like productive communication, and then someone like a third party like Kyle jumps in like, say sorry. Like, that's not productive. You're just going into semantics here. She really did just apologize.
Well, I think he's right in the way that it's like, you were completely wrong on this, so you just need to say I'm sorry, and that's it. But Lindsay can't, because she's still justifying it and saying, well, but I was just questioning your aggression. Right, but you were also wasted, and you were on national TV, and this was bad. You just need to say sorry. Like, period. I mean, I agree. But
though, I want Carl to be the one to say
Kyle
that.
Jumping in on everything.
That's
the
thing.
Not Kyle's business, and nothing's going to get resolved. You're right, because he just keeps jumping in on everything.
I want Carl to be the one that responds and then gets her to a place where she realizes it really should just be like, I'm sorry, and that's it. But when Kyle does it, it's a distraction, and then it becomes a back and forth about, are you going to let me finish or whatever. It doesn't like lead to anything useful.
Yeah. So
And you
she's
should know
like,
that
am
as a
I
CEO
allowed to
and
speak?
founder.
So they just fight. And then Gabby throws her hands up because she goes, I would love for you to stop cutting me off. And then Gabby throws her hands up like, well, guys, I tried with Lindsay. I'm getting kind of that vibe from Gabby now. Like, I tried, but look at Lindsay. She just can't control herself, And at least that's what I'm getting. And so Kyle is like, I don't know why you'd come after sobriety like you did. There's not a world in which I can reason with that. And she's like, Kyle, I'm his partner and I'm witnessing his behavior towards me. He goes, it doesn't pencil. It doesn't pencil out. It doesn't pencil out.
Lindsay's basically like, Kyle, you don't get to own my emotions. And so Sierra says, accusing someone of doing drugs feels like an end of relationship accusation. It feels cutthroat. It feels like below the belt, like a knife stuck and being turned. And she's right. And honestly, like Carl probably should have just ended it right there, to be honest. The fact that he didn't, it's like, I understand it's not as cut, like when it's a relationship, when you're engaged, when you're on TV, you don't just turn the switch off. But the truth is that he really should have in that moment.
Yeah, I thought the whole, I've said it a million times, like the way that conversation went about, especially when she's wasted. But here's what cracks me up. Kyle gets away with everything because he was wasted. He was just drunk. I mean, it was just Kyle like yelling and screaming because he was drunk. But Lindsay has one night where she gets wasted and does it. And it's like the worst thing, relationship ending, the worst thing in the world. I mean, Kyle wasn't calling Amanda an alcoholic, but he was calling her dreams stupid. And he was saying on national TV that her even pretending like she had an equal say in Loverboy when she would have been fired by now because of the shitty job she does and all of that. Like, why is that okay? And something we glance over. But Lindsay's drunken night is like, that was relationship ending. You suggested that someone who was on cocaine might do cocaine again at some point.
I think that like maybe the larger picture is that it seems like when Kyle gets wasted and says something really out of pocket, and he said like really mean things about Amanda before when he's been wasted, there is an attempt to contextualize it, to understand where he was coming from, have a conversation about it, to get to the deeper thing and have resolution. And when Lindsay does it, there's no attempt to contextualize it. There's no attempt to understand like maybe what drove her to say it, or, not to say if you say something shitty, it doesn't mean you are automatically given the right to understand why you said something shitty because like you're not owed it. But just saying that like the playing field is not even.
Right, but she was trying to she was trying to contextualize it when she was saying, I was in a relationship with him, Kyle, and then Kyle jumps in with it.
Like no one gives her that, right? Like
so
no one.
She
it's
can't
like,
contextualize it because no one will let her say what she's trying to say, which is, I was with this man when he was on coke and treating me like that. So when he treated me like that again, I was saying this is like cocaine Carl. Is like the Carl who was on cocaine. I know it wasn't right, but that's what I was thinking at the time when I was shit-faced. Sorry,
Yeah.
like.
So then Carl's like, well, you know what? Like, she's like, Andy says, was there a point where you felt like her support changed? He goes, well, she's been really supportive and like, I have baggage. It's like a lot. I've like a lot of baggage. And Paige is like, Carl, you talk very badly about yourself when really you should be talking badly about Danielle's dress. Sorry. It's so fun to go to that well.
He's like, do you even read the internet? Do you see what people say about me? Of course I feel bad about myself.
And he goes, well, the internet is hateful. It is hateful.
And Paige is like, just because you're sober doesn't mean you're in the disregard pile. I mean, these jokes just write themselves. Like where Danielle found her dress. Am I right, everyone? And Kyle's like, he falls on so many swords just because he had this addiction. I mean, is this a simplistic way for me to look at it? But isn't like a major part of recovery of like the 12 steps is like the apologies and everything like that? Isn't there kind of like a falling on the sword part of that process? I'm an outsider to this, so feel free to ding me if I've made it too simple. But I just seem to remember with Beverly Hills when Kim Richards was always so like resentful for having to apologize to people for like shit she did when she was super high. And I was always like, but aren't you supposed to be apologizing to people? Isn't that like a thing that you do?
Well, that's in the steps. And that's kind of a different program. A lot of modern sobriety doesn't do the steps. They use whatever, California sober, like whatever Carl's doing, which is a different. Yeah, there's different ways that people go about it, but the steps are the 12 steps, and that's one of the 12 steps. But I don't think he's doing that. And by the way, I'm not being shitty. I just don't think he is. I think that he's admitted to doing.
By the way, Carl does have baggage. He does have baggage. I'm sorry, he has baggage. They all have baggage.
And when you open
Carl
it up,
does
guess
have
what
baggage.
It is? It's white jeans. It's a lot of white jeans. Here's my thing: when he says, when Paige is like, "Well, it doesn't just because you're sober doesn't mean you're in the disregard pile." Who's villainizing Carl for being sober? Let's not make this narrative that everyone's looking down on Carl because he's sober. I don't see where that's happening. I think if anything else, Carl's sobriety is lifting him to this sainthood where nobody will call Carl out on anything because he's sober.
The truth is this, on top of everything else, Danielle was completely right. This was way too fast of an engagement. I mean, we all knew that. We all knew like it was too fast. But like their relationship, the first year or so of their relationship was like built on personas they wanted to have. And Lindsay was babying Carl. She was like, "Hey, babe, you want to do this? Can I get you this? Can I do this, baby?" And like she was treating him with kid gloves. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, this is great. Oh, I love it." And then eventually she just is like, "I don't want to do this anymore." And her real sort of attitude towards him came out. And I think that and his real attitude towards her came out. And I don't think he really could deal with that. I think he actually really liked being babied. And I think it's really difficult.
Well, yeah. Well, she's helping him get through something. And so at some point you're like, okay, we're through this, right? So now what's the next step? Getting through it. And he's like, no, I like that. I like that other step of being helped get through it.
He got engaged. He got engaged to a persona. He did not get engaged to Lindsay. And that's where the problem is.
Pickle from Juice says, "Lindsay, do you regret what you said about sobriety? Because we didn't see you apologize on camera."
She goes, "Okay, well, I regret not using more sensitive words." And Amanda goes, What are more sensitive words? Probably my wife is a bitch. And she would be fired already if she was an employee. Maybe was that more sensitive? I don't know. Why don't you fucking worry about your side of the street over there, ma'am? Okay?
And Amanda's like, "You literally said cocaine, Carl." And Lindsay goes, "Well, yeah, and I literally just apologized for that." And Carl goes, "But you said but you said but." And then Gabby's like, "Okay, guys, she regrets it. She feels bad. Can we move on, please?"
So she's like, "Okay, to answer your question, I've not talked to him on camera. This was the first time we spoke, and I apologized 10 minutes ago about it." So Andy's like, "Danielle, do you think you could have helped Lindsay and Carl through this?" She goes, No. No.
I have a follow-up question. Lindsay and Carl, do you think you could have helped Danielle with her dress? Sorry, just too easy.
I have a question for everybody. Is Danielle's dress helping anybody? It's not.
USB from Charger said, "Lindsay, you blamed his ambition for being the reason you couldn't sleep with him, but how could he have a job when you shot down all of his ideas? Don't you realize a woman's place is not to comment on a man's career?"
So it's like, "I did not shoot down ideas. There were 8 months before the wedding, and we discussed ideas, and now it's 8 months later, and he's saying, like, sports bar? I mean, I was like, we're trying to bring money in, not give money away."
And everybody's laughing at her. It's like, oh, look, Lindsay's such an asshole. He doesn't want to open a sober sports bar? What a bitch.
If Craig told Paige, "Hey, chicken, I want to open up a sports bar, but it's like you can also sew and we don't sell booze in there," she'd be like, "Yeah, never do that. Go back to fixing your pool." Like, she would be like, "This is ridiculous." I cannot imagine anyone who is behind Carl's big grand plan of opening up the sober sports bar. I'm sorry. And he goes, "Yeah, well, that was off the cuff, but like, look at my lifestyle. I don't want to ever drink again. Okay, so I want to lean into non-alc, like, like a cafe or like a non-alc sports bar, which, by the way, I'm about to open up. Yeah, it's gonna be like a sports bar without booze. It's like we're gonna sell coffee, and we're thinking about calling it like, I don't know, like Moon Cash or something like that, or like Planet Buckaroos. I don't know. It's sort of." It's workshopping it a little bit.
It's funny, though, because he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to open like a non-alc sports bar. So what do you think about that?" And Andy goes,
"A sports bar with no alcohol?"
Yeah, I've got a team, and we're going to open a sports bar here in New York. Oh, you've got a team, huh? And he's like, "Yeah, wait, a sober sports bar?" He goes, yeah, it's going to have a cafe and non-alc drinks. It's going to be a huge non-alc. Oh, can I have a non-alc latte? Oh, doesn't it have a ring to it? Can I have a non-alc cappuccino? Aren't those already non-alcoholic?
Oh. Are they? Are they? I'm going to have to ask my partners on that. Don't disregard me. I've got a lot of baggage. Have you read the internet?
Listen, if a non-alc sports bar proves to be the haven for sober people to finally be able to go to a sports bar and not feel pressure, and it works out, then I'm more than thrilled. I just think it's a wild gamble, and I don't think it's like, I think it's just very reasonable for Lindsay to be like, what the fuck? And for all
Well,
of us
if he
to be
really
like, what the
wants
fuck?
to do it and he's found a way and he's going to dedicate himself to doing it, good for you. You know, but the question here was, why was Lindsay against it? Because it's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's an idea that he just came up with because he was put on the spot. It was like he was playing improv, you know?
Yeah.
So then Carl's like, yeah, it's my calling. And Lindsay goes, yeah, but at that point it was so many ideas and he had all these months and he was just throwing, you know, like it's like he was writing ideas on pieces of paper and then throwing them in the air. Like, should we do this? Should we do this? And Paige and Sierra are just cracking up like she's completely just like this insane person for saying any of that. And I really just need them to play clips of Paige being like, Craig, a racehorse? You're an idiot. Oh my God, look at Lindsay expecting her man to have a job. That is ridiculous.
So Carl's like, but you know what? I was bringing money. I was like making influencer campaigns. And he's like, yeah, and you were making the same amount on the show, by the way. And I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like a lot of money. And Lindsay's like, and when the show goes away, it's like, it's one thing to like want to get married. It's expensive. But like, if you want to have kids, like that's expensive. And Paige is like, yeah, but like, what if he turned around on you and been like, fuck you? You know, you would have been like, fuck you. And Lindsay's like, but I'm bringing in money from brand campaigns. And also, why is Lindsay not saying, also, I have a track record of working in PR, and if things get rough, I could always open up like my business again. Like I have an established career and a track record, and I've been doing this for a while, and his track record is spotty.
Yeah. And she's, and Amanda's like, well, he's bringing in money from brand campaigns. And she goes, no, he wasn't. And he goes, yes, I was. Yes, I was. And she goes, oh my God, please. You did one campaign for, did she say Zelle? What was, I couldn't understand.
I don't remember.
Said, you did one
Zelle.
campaign, Carl, and we did that together. I think insinuating like, I got us that as part of our couple influencer thing I was trying out.
No,
and he's like, oh,
excuse
bubbly.
me. I started January with a bubbly campaign. So,
Try January with Bubbly by Carl Radke. And she's like, I mean, also Paige is like, you know, he's like not making significantly less than you. Like you're making what, like 30 grand more? It's like not insane. But that is actually significant. Actually, I think.
I was going to say, how much money is Paige making? Because that's a decent amount of money. She's like,
It's nothing. I mean, what? I don't wake up for less than 30 grand a day.
like, okay. I just also love the idea that Carl's doing a campaign for Bubbly of all the names for a product for Carl to do.
I think you should drink bubbly. It is so, bubbly. Hey, bubbly.
Just like me.
Bubbly. You should be bubblier. No.
Put your weight
Bubblier.
on the bubbles. So Andy's like, Vanilla from Folders says, hey, what is your job, Lindsay, and how many hours do you work? I'm like, does anyone remember that the reason why Rad House is like a thing is because she has a company called Hub House, which she shuttered or at least put on pause. But like it just seemed like it felt like a gotcha question, which I'm all for on the reunions. But it just, I don't know why we didn't see the same scrutiny on Carl. Like, where's the scrutiny on Carl? Like, so what have you been doing? Like, what were your ideas? Like, what were the steps you're taking to like better your career? When, by the way, so far, the only thing we've really gotten out of it is that you work part-time for Loverboy, which is not even the full extent of what you were asking for from that job.
And which you didn't even go out and get yourself. You literally just sat around until somebody came by and was like, hey, you want this? Here you go. You just had to say yes and show up a couple of times a week. Give me a fucking break. Also, this whole thing of like, well, what do you do, Lindsay? And she's like, I do this show like Carl and I do brand campaigns on the side. And Andy's like, well, that's his job too. And then the girls are just giving her shitty looks like, yeah, Lindsay. Could you imagine, would you think Paige for 1 second would be dating Craig if Craig was like, oh, I don't have a company and I'm not trying to make 10 businesses happen at one time.
Right.
You know,
But
she
I was
wouldn't be
thinking
with
about
him.
like
She
thinking
wouldn't
about
be
doing
with
some
Craig if
part-time
he
work
was
at
just
Chef's
some
Bar.
fucking
Yeah.
some fucking guy sitting around on a couch who was on a reality show a few months a year. There's no way in hell.
Yeah. Lindsay says, like it was 9 months of the same conversation over and over and over again. I'm like, to me, this all makes total sense. Like it is, I would have gone absolutely berserk.
And I think your point of their whole deal was we're getting ready to settle down and have children, and I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And okay, I'm going to go out and provide. Okay, well, what are your ideas to do that? That's a totally normal conversation to have, and they're all acting like she's on planet Mars.
And also, like, him being an influencer is fine, but like she also has a realistic view of like Summer House is not going to last forever, or we're not going to last forever on it, and like our influencing stuff is all going to be contingent on that. So what happens when the influencing money dries up, because that's so ephemeral? Like, what about an actual long-term plan?
Yeah. So Andy's like, well, moving on, Carl, let's talk about your mom and stepdad. They told you guys weren't ready for marriage. And then we see the clip of the Reverend in his More Life shirt being like, I wouldn't even marry ya. And Andy is like, so did you know before the visit that they were worried? He goes,
well, I knew they had a little concern, but I didn't go for a premeditated conversation like the internet saying. They're so mean. I wanted to share positivity, which is why I talked about how abusive Lindsay was. And then when said, gosh, guys, she's being nice to me. She hasn't hit me lately. I mean, I just can't believe they had that reaction. I totally didn't tell them to do that.
Yeah. I mean, they had like a little bit of concern from the fact that the last time we had a fight, I went and told them that she was mean to me. But like, no, like it was not premeditated at all. So Andy's like, Lindsay, when it aired, you commented that he was laying breadcrumbs. And he's like, no. She said I should go into gardening. And I almost wrote back, like, gardening, that's like a lot of work. How about this? What about non-alc?
Wow, I was exhausted even making this hypothetical.
I really can't continue this answer. It's just a lot of work right now. I'm just like trying to work on me.
No, please finish. I'm really sorry that I interrupted me. Please finish what you were going to say. I was really shitty of me.
I just, it's just like I come with a lot of baggage, and that baggage includes some gardening tools. It's just like a lot of my back.
Well, what I wanted to say in response was, I think we all know who had the green thumb here. And it's Lindsay, because she's the gardener. Everybody get that? That was good, right? That's why Bubbly likes me. Okay. That was a Bubbly joke.
Anyway. Yeah, well, maybe you should be an influencer for Miracle Grow, which would be a great way to describe your career.
And Paige is like, wow, that went over my head because gardening's disgusting. So I don't know why we're even talking about gardening. Gross. Literally gross.
That went over my head more than any of the basic standards of fashion went over Danielle's.
That went over my head just like a bag should go over Danielle's today. So Lindsay's like, look, I mean, that level of conversation, like, I get that you might not know what Lou's going to say, right? But I don't know what conversations they had prior to the cameras rolling. He goes, no, we didn't have any conversations. Yeah, you did, because, and then Amanda goes, yeah, he just got there the night before. And Carl goes, yeah, he's a minister. And Paige goes, yeah, I don't think you can trust ministers, right, guys? Guys, they're not saying Carl gave them a script. That's not the point. And you guys are smart enough to know that's not what's being said here. What's being said is that Carl went and told his parents how awful Lindsay was, how she's drunk, how she's abusive, this and that, and then went to them on camera on purpose, acting like, oh, guys, and they're so worried that they're saying, Carl, you can't get married to this person, and then acting like, well, my parents just randomly think that I shouldn't get married, so I shouldn't, maybe that's a sign that I shouldn't get married. Well, they're saying that because of stuff that you've told them, Carl. So this whole thing of like, Carl's never said anything to them. Ministers wouldn't lie. Oh my God!
I agree. I don't think that they had I don't think they had marching orders, but I do think that they came in with a certain perspective, which, by the way, their perspective is not really that wrong. We're
it's
in total
absolutely
agreement.
Correct. If your child comes to you and tells you, I'm trying to be sober, I'm with someone who's drunk that's constantly yelling at me, and we're constantly fighting, and we're having knockdown, drag out fights, of course you're going to say, don't get married. I mean, right. I think that their advice was good. That's what our advice has been. We're not even anybody's parents.
But the fact that he that he had a scene with them, it does feel honestly like he wanted to get on camera support. Like, see, look, even my parents say it. It's like, of course they're going to say it.
Even a minister thinks that Lindsay's insane, is what he's going for.
It's just such gaslighting.
So
by
Andy's
the whole
like,
cast at this point, the whole cast. Like, Paige is like,
Yeah, ministers are gonna lie. I'm sure. Like, you can't trust ministers. Am I right?
you know that's not
you know what?
they're
I don't think it's gaslighting. I think it's just that the cast has a perspective and they're entrenched in it, and they don't really see how there's actually, I think, more going on here. And so Andy is, Andy's like, well, is he that good of a producer that he's like, oh, I'm gonna dump her, but I need Lou to say it on camera? And it's like, it's not that he's so good of a producer, but I think it's when you're kind of, listen, I say this as someone who is I have actually a lot of similarities to Carl. I feel like a lot of times I don't necessarily advocate for myself the way I should, and I've been working on that and trying to advocate for myself a whole lot more. A lot of times it's like you're scared of getting bad reactions and people, whatever. And so sometimes you do actually kind of like align yourself with people who are going to say it for you because it's very scary for you. So it's not that like you're, such a like a producer, but it's like it's kind of in the way you move. It's like you're sort of like, you've learned that this is how you can kind of like survive. And so I don't think that he is being like a producer in this situation. I think he is going to his natural instincts of seeking out the people who will advocate for him because he doesn't want to do it himself.
Yeah, which I mean is a very diplomatic way of putting it. I think that road still leads back to he's being a manipulative producer. He's saying, this is the narrative I want on camera, and I need to have Reverend Lou and my mom being worried as hell that Lindsay is trying to take me back to alcohol because she's an alcoholic who's abusing me and doing all this stuff. And I think he's purposely getting that on camera to lay groundwork, which is, to me, manipulation, which is what Lindsay said. So agreed there again. And so Andy's like, is Lou that good of an actor? No, the point is that he's not acting. He's reacting to what Carl is telling him. No one is accusing Lou of acting. They're taking these little things and they're twisting them. No one's saying Lou is an actor. They're saying Carl is leading them to say certain things on camera.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'm like looking around for household objects. Uplift from desk says, Carl, you seemed upset, but then showed up at the bridal shower all love and roses. And Carl's like, yeah, well, I didn't know how to navigate that conversation. I thought, do I even need to have that conversation with Lindsay now that we're good? It's more like you said, oh no, like I need to look like the good guy at all times. So I'm going to appear as the good guy, but I'm going to sort of like plant the seeds to make Lindsay be the crazy one.
He's also coming in like, well, I've just told my mother, I've just dropped this bomb on my mother. Our relationship sucks bomb again on my mother. My mother has just expressed through Lou how worried they are about me. And now my mother's here sitting right next to Lindsay for an hour before I even arrived. So I need to look like the really good guy, maybe even to Lindsay. It's like, that's how Carl is. It's like, I always need to look like the good guy to somebody. So he's like coming in to be either the savior to whoever's going to fight with whoever.
Carl's going to be there standing there with flowers. All right.
I think he just doesn't want to get in trouble. That's his big thing. He doesn't want to get in trouble, and he knows he just shot this scene with his parents, and it could, it could look really bad for him, and I think he wants to like counter it with like a Prince Charming moment.
Yeah. So then Carl's talking about how they went to couples therapy to make things work. And Andy's saying, in the final weekend in the house, Carl said he's having second thoughts and we should not be married if this is how we're communicating. And Lindsay's like, okay, yeah, but I was just like, maybe I wasn't listening, but I was just emotionally exhausted at that point. And he goes, so the question is then, how were you blindsided by any of this? She goes, because the next sentence was, I'm committed to figuring it out. So then we didn't speak. And then the next conversation we had was on camera. He's like, so Carl, what did you think was going to happen in that conversation?
Well, I thought that, I was going to sit down. I was going to say, Lindsay, I'm obsessed with you. I love you. Let's make it work. And she was going to say, oh, this is amazing. Let's make it work.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, did the cameras energize you and make you cut the ripcord? He's like, well, we've been doing this for like 8 years, and we've shared a lot of things. We take it seriously. It's a real life conversation that who knows if it was going to end up with me dumping her. I definitely didn't think that whatsoever. I just thought we are going to talk about, I don't know, you want to watch Jeopardy. What do you think about Jeopardy these days? Is it the same?
Let's just watch that conversation again, because he totally knew.
He's like, this is what you are. You're not capable of listening. You're not capable of giving me what I need. Yeah, just trying to work it out. Make sure that we're going to last forever.
I mean, it's an interesting question that Andy asked, like, how could you honestly be blindsided when it was like really so obvious? He even said, should we call this wedding off? And it does feel kind of like, okay, Lindsay, you really can't say that you're blindsided. But I think the reason why she was blindsided is because she probably really thought like Carl would never have the balls to say, you know what, I want out of this. And she really thought like, I have this plan and we're having issues, but we're going to push through. We're going to soldier on. This is what we do. Life is pain. And we're going to get to that altar. And I think she was blindsided because she thought despite everything, like she was still going to get that ring on her finger.
Well, I don't think that I would say it's not that she thought he didn't have the balls. I think she thought they had agreed that they were going to work through whatever. Like they both knew it was hard. They were in weird places. They're both kind of weirdos trying to get married. And they knew that they needed a lot of therapy and this and that. And they kept committing to working it out no matter what. So if it took a couple of days of them not talking, they would eventually work it out, you know? So she like, is it delusional? Sure. But I think part of the blindsided was also the fact that he did it on camera, because she says it later too, like, forget being in a relationship. This is like my best friend. Like we've been best friends for a really long time. We've gone through a lot together. So the fact that he would hold that from me and then call the producers to come over so he could dump me like that on camera, that was the blind side. It's not even that we broke up. It's that he would do it like that. You know, but no one's going to listen to that. They're just going to keep going,
Lindsay, why are you even surprised? Why are you surprised, Lindsay?
And Andy's like, well, if the engagement happened on camera doesn't attract, it would end on camera. I mean, you're on a show about sharing your life. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, like the show is supposed to end at Labor Day, right? So Lindsay's like saying like, yeah, no one's arguing that I've shared my entire body and soul. It's like, but you are. You say it was terrible to do it on camera. How could you be so mean to Bravo? And she's like, because this is the biggest decision and you're blindsiding someone with it because you've already made the decision. And I thought that respect would go beyond the show.
Yeah. I mean, I love that Andy's just so confused by it. How dare you say it's terrible to get dumped on camera? This is Bravo. What are you doing?
It's such an honor to have your humiliation broadcast far and wide.
So gross. So Kyle's like, Kyle's like, oh yeah, Carl wasn't sure. He wasn't sure. I was with him. I remember he was like, Kyle, I'm so unsure. I'm so unsure about this breakup scene. Like, am I gonna be okay? I was like, you're gonna do great in your breakup scene. It's not really a breakup scene, but could be if you decide to break up with her, which you probably won't. Because who's gonna support your relationship with Lindsay more than me? The guy who's been telling Lindsay to shut the fuck up and calling her crazy all day.
Hey, everyone, I want to make a point. Is it about how terrible Danielle's dress is? I mean, it has to be said.
I'm going to make a point, too, with my finger. That girl is dressed terribly. That girl.
Okay, y'all don't decide what is shot. Okay, production decides. And you guys had this horrible weekend, and production wanted to follow up, especially once Carl said, hey, I think I want to break up with her on camera. Okay, so they shot those two, and they wanted to shoot. They shot Carl and Kyle, and they wanted to shoot Carl and Lindsay afterwards. So the notion that Carl called the shots on this situation is absolutely wild.
I thought it was agreed that Carl called them. I think the only thing that's in flux here is why Carl called them. But Andy being like, oh, well, you don't make the producers do anything. Oh, really, Andy? So the housewives never call. Really? So what about Ariana's whole thing when she found out Tom was cheating and immediately called the producers? The producers had nothing to do with that? I mean, come on. Give me a fucking break with this.
Yeah, so Andy's like, I'm just making it clear because that's the narrative that the audience has. Dude, a crazy pants right here. So Lindsay's like, yeah, but then like Amanda, like what happens when you call the producers and say, hey, I'm having serious thoughts about ending the relationship? It's like, that is, Lindsay's right. Like if you call the producers and say that, they're going to get their cameras over there right away.
Yes.
But Amanda says that Carl didn't do that.
Well, they're saying now I think they're going on semantics. Like, what did Carl say? Okay.
Like, Carl probably said, I'm going to have a tough conversation
Carl didn't
with her.
call them. They're just saying he didn't say that. You see what I mean? So, okay, right. So he did call them. So then what? He's just calling to say, hey, guys, I know we shot. I know that we ended up fighting and that the season ended, but I think we really need to get the cameras back. It's really important. It's going to be huge. Not really sure what's going to happen. Probably we're just going to hug. So I just need all the cameras back there to see us hug. I'm like, what the fuck? Of course he's calling them, and they're gonna, even if he didn't tell them why I'm gonna dump Lindsay today, he's calling like, I have something big. Get Andy in a camera.
Mm-hmm. So Andy's like, okay, well, Lindsay, there's narrative that you were blindsided. She goes, yeah, I was extremely blindsided. And Amanda's like, oh, what was her definition of blindsiding? And Lindsay's like, looking back, it looks like you've been planning to do it for the whole summer. And now they're like kind of like laughing at her that she has these wild conspiracy theories, that it was like so premeditated.
Yeah, they're just like openly laughing at her now. Like, oh, come on. Where does she come up with this stuff? My God. I like this point where she's like, I'm not going to say I wasn't blindsided. Like, I didn't know that he was thinking a lot of this stuff because he didn't tell me he was, a lot of the stuff. The conversations you guys see are him having conversations about me with other people when he was with me. And that's true because when we saw Carl through most of the season, he's just going, okay, Lindsay. Okay. You're totally right, Lindsay. And then just going and acting like a victim about it to everybody else. So
So Andy's like, what's funny? I thought it was you'd break up with him. I thought you'd say, hey, Carl, you've been sending me mixed messages the whole time. We're done. I'm out. Deuces.
And then she's like, well, then she goes, well, I didn't expect somebody to call off the wedding and Carl goes, no one stood up to you before. No one ever stood up to you. How is that true? You guys have been here giving her shit for years. All you
literally
do is
wrote
stand
an
up to her.
18-page manifesto to her once.
Her first season was with Everett, constant fighting. Literally everybody on this stage has stood up to Lindsay. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah. And Lindsay's like, God, what is wrong with you, Carl? You're so nasty. And he's like, well, I thought there was a chance you'd have some sense of self-awareness. I mean, from Kyle, that's hilarious. She's
From
like,
the drunk in a mullet. From the drunk in a mullet taking DJ classes in New Jersey.
I do have self-awareness, but I'm not going to say I wasn't blindsided. I didn't know he was thinking stuff because he didn't tell me we're having conversations with everyone else.
Oh, yeah, well, you're hard to communicate with. You're hard to communicate with. Oh. And you know what you're not hard at? Hugging. I need it harder.
Harder. Excuse me. Harder.
So Carl's like, I felt bad for her in that relationship. I feel bad for Carl, and also I felt bad for Lindsay too. It's just the way that it was handled after in the press. No, you were totally planting seeds. You were totally rubbing Carl the whole season anti-Lindsay, as you have for years. Which I don't really even blame you because you and Lindsay have like this rivalry or whatever you two have is kind of separate. But to act like, oh, I just felt for everybody, it's just how Lindsay handled it. In the press,
I don't think that you're allowed to dump someone and then get mad at the way they react to it and what they decide they're going to say to the press. I think if you've been dumped, especially on camera, and you're humiliated and you're blindsided and you're frustrated, like, you're probably going to pop off about certain things. You'll probably, and it's Lindsay too. Lindsay always has like her own strange narratives, etc. I just think it's like the idea of like, okay, I'm ending this dream for you, even though it's not a great dream, but I'm ending this dream for you. And now you have to react the way I want you to react. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So Lindsay's like, okay, well, you're allowed to be out, but don't be so nasty, dude. And Andy is saying, okay, well, Carl mentioned that he paid the rent for you in Rad House. I mean, how problematic is this fucking show? My God, this is one of Andy's most problematic moments in a long time. This whole reunion, like, what the fuck are you doing? Standing up for the men again in another season, just making it out these fucking crazy women. So he's like, yeah, Carl mentioned that he paid the rent for you in Rad House. And she goes, he didn't pay the rent for me. He paid his half of the rent. Like, and he goes, oh, yeah, but his half, but you live there alone. Are you still living there? She goes, yeah, but our lease is up June 15th. And Carl goes, 14th. I know the exact day.
Well, I guess I'm trying to say is I'm like really qualified for a job because I know exact dates. Detail-oriented. So she basically says she's staying in the place. She's not moving out.
And Jesse laughs and he goes, yeah, she can afford it.
Yeah. Which, by the way, exactly, she can afford it. So And he's asked if she's seeing anyone. He's like, yeah, I'm seeing a wonderful man. And then she's saying how he's incredible. And they went on some dates a few years ago. It was bad timing. And then he, popped back up in December and they started dating again in January.
And they've all met him in Portugal. Love him. Carl loves him. And Andy's like, has he seen the show? And Lindsay says no. And Andy goes, yikes.
Yeah, he probably should watch the show. I'm going to say this right now. It's probably an important thing to do. So Lindsay says she's sick of planning. She's sick of the timeline thing. She's not doing it anymore, which I'll believe it when I see it, And Carl's like,
who else is sick of timing? Expired milk. So, at this point, just start calling yourself Munster and embrace it. That's what I say. Cheesehead.
You know who else is tired of planning? Danielle, which is why she threw together that shit.
You know whose outfit is expired? Not Danielle's, because it was never fresh. All right.
Carl's like, well, I wish Lindsay nothing but happiness. It's like, all right. Well, looking back, is there any part of you that thinks Carl did you a favor, Lindsay? And she's like, I think the decision he made was the best for me, even though I don't agree with how he did it. It was like really disrespectful and it wasn't handled right. But like, forget the relationship. It's like we had a friendship and like, I don't like that. Her whole thing is that like, I don't like being told I'm being dumped. She's like, it should have been a conversation where we mutually agree, which I don't know if that's realistic. If someone wants out of that relationship, like it sucks, but you're out, like they're out,
I think she's just saying she doesn't like the gotcha moment for TV cameras. But
maybe it's that. Well, her whole thing was like, you've already made your decision. You made your decision. You came on here to make me look like a fool on TV. So it's a little bit of both, perhaps.
So Andy's like, do you miss your friend? Do you miss your friend, Lindsay? And she's like,
Christina Blair Gibson? No, I hope she's dead in a ditch somewhere. He goes, no, Carl. She goes, oh, at first I did, but it dissipated quickly. And every time I see somebody smile now, I'm not getting blinded by their teeth. So that's helpful as well.
Well, we had some great times and I made the decision, but like she's been a great support and I haven't kissed anyone since Lindsay, and it's fucking embarrassing. Oh, I'm a monster. I'm a monster.
And the girls are like,
no, Carl, it's not your fault. Stop falling on the sword, Paul.
I guess I've been too busy buying groceries for my mother. Oh. Well,
everybody is still falling for this horse shit. It's making me crazy.
You know what? I heard something. I blew it up, and it wasn't right. And I'm sorry for how it was handled, but I'm surprised at what you're saying, and it helps me. It helps me because I thought it would go different. I thought she would try to burn me. Just Carl, someone who hasn't kissed anyone in 9 months since he dumped someone, and wow, I thought you were gonna burn me to the ground, and you didn't. You had decency and kindness towards me, sweet poor Carl Radke.
And she's like, well, we're not done yet. And everyone cracks up. And he's like, well, I'm glad to hear her say I did a favor. It's like the nicest thing she's ever given me credit for.
She goes, I didn't say it was a great decision. The universe did me a favor.
And so Andy's like, okay, so could the same group send it next season, old man Kyle? And he's like, oh, it was an incredible summer despite challenges. It's an incredible group of friends. That's for sure, Andy.
Yeah, we had a great time. We all got into the same bed. Can you believe it? Like, so now when people call us the bed sore girls, it's like, which one? Because we were all in there. So everyone shut up, internet. And by the way, Lindsay fell asleep in my bed. I was like, oh my God, I have never been part of a multi-generational bed moment. Like, so strange to sleep with a senior citizen in the same bed.
You had babies sleeping with an old lady. It was like a Dove commercial.
By the way, speaking of everyone getting into bed, one thing that should be put to bed, Danielle's dress.
And he's like, Kyle, you said we could cut off your hair.
Can we also cut off Danielle's dress? Can we cover Danielle's dress with Kyle's hair? I mean, something. Come on. Give me a bone. Throw me a bone here.
So Andy puts his hair into a ponytail and then cuts it off and does a really horrific job. Like, it's like there's a cut that's like a semicircle in the back of his hair. It's pretty bad, but it is
like
still better.
Lindsay, he puts his hair in a ponytail, Kyle's hair in a ponytail, and Lindsay goes,
oh my God, Andy, I cannot believe you know how to make a ponytail.
And he's like, I have a daughter.
And I understand
that's how much Lindsay
physics.
pays attention to anybody else's life. That's hilarious.
Also, he understands the concept of grabbing hair and putting a twisty on it. So they're all happy because the mullet's gone, and so is the season. The season is now over, but they're going to be filming in like 3 weeks. So I can't even imagine. I can't imagine what this next season's going to be like. It's gonna be awkward. There's gonna be a lot of awkwardness in the house.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. Well, it's been a good season, tumultuous.
I would say their best season.
Oh, wow. Ow.
Yeah,
Enjoy
I'm saying
that
it. I
limb
think it
you're
was their best
standing
season.
on. I don't, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good season. Definitely the best in a long time. I have erased a lot of seasons from my DVR up here, my head DVR. So I'm not going to make any grand pronouncements, but I really did enjoy the season. Definitely brought up some interesting conversations and past traumas. So that was fun. Thanks, show. It's been really fun. It's been great.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.